3. Does S tell us to never be self-denying? It may seem obvious that S tells everyone to be never self-denying, but as described so far, S claims only that, for each person, there is one supremely rational ultimate aim, that his life go for him as well as possible. When applied to acts, S claims both S2, what each of us has most reason to do is whatever would be best for himself, and S3, it is irrational for anyone to do what he believes will be worse for himself. S must also make claims about what we should do when we cannot predict the effects of our acts. We can ignore cases of uncertainty, where we have no beliefs about the probabilities of different effects. In risky cases, where we do have such beliefs, S claims S4. What it would be rational for anyone to do is what will bring him the greatest expected benefit. To calculate the expected benefit from some act, we add together the possible benefits and subtract the possible costs, with each benefit or cost multiplied by the chance that the act will produce it. Thus, if some act has a chance of 9 in 10 of bringing me some benefit B, and a chance of 1 in 10 of causing me to lose some benefit that would be twice as great as B, the expected benefit is B times 9 over 10 minus 2B times 1 over 10, or 7/10 of B. What should S claim about the rationality of desires and dispositions? Since S claims that, for each person, there is one supremely rational ultimate aim, S should clearly claim that the supremely rational desire is the desire that this aim should be achieved. S should claim S5. The supremely rational desire is that one's life go as well as possible for oneself. Similarly, S should claim S6. The supremely rational disposition is that of someone who is never self-denying. If someone is never self-denying, though he sometimes acts on other desires, he never acts against the supremely rational desire. He never does what he believes will be worse for him. To save words, call both desires and dispositions motives. There are ways in which, over time, we can cause our motives to change. We can develop habits. If we act in ways that we do not now enjoy, we may come to enjoy them. If we change our work, or where we live, or read certain books, or have children, this may cause predictable changes in our motives. And there are many other ways in which we can cause such changes. According to S2, what each person has most reason to do is to cause himself to have, or allow himself to keep, any of the best possible sets of motives in self-interested terms. These are the sets of motives of which the following is true. There is no other possible set of motives of which it is true that, if this person had these motives, this would be better for him. By possible, I mean causally possible, given the general facts about human nature and the particular facts about this person's nature. It would often be hard to know whether some set of motives would be causally possible for someone, or would be one of the best sets for this person in self-interested terms. But we can ignore these difficulties. There are many cases in which someone knows that it would be better for him if there was some change in his motives. And in many of these cases, such a person knows that, in one of the ways described above, he could cause this change. S3 implies that it would be irrational for this person not to cause this change. Similar claims apply to our emotions, beliefs, abilities, the color of our hair, where we live, and anything else that we could change. What each of us has most reason to do is to make any change that would be best for himself. If someone believes that he could make such a change, it would be irrational for him not to do so. We can now return to my earlier question. We are discussing the people of whom it is true that, if they were never self-denying, this would be worse for them than if they had some other disposition. Suppose that these people know that this is true. Does S tell them to be never self-denying? S claims the following. If such a person was never self-denying, he would have the disposition that is supremely rational. But it would be irrational for this person to cause himself to have or to keep this disposition. It would be rational for him to cause himself to have or to keep the other disposition, since this would be better for him. These claims may seem to give conflicting answers to my question. They may seem to tell this person both to be, and not to be, never self-denying. This misinterprets S. When S claims that one disposition is supremely rational, it does not tell us to have this disposition. Remember the distinction between formal and substantive aims. Like all theories about rationality, S gives to everyone this formal aim: to be rational and to act rationally. What distinguishes different theories is that they give us different substantive aims. In its central claim, S1, S gives to each person one substantive aim: that his life go for him as well as possible. Does S give to each person another substantive aim? To be rational and to act rationally? It does not. According to S, our formal aim is not a substantive aim. It may be thought that, in making these claims, I have not described the best version of the self-interest theory. But this is the version that would be accepted by most of those who believe this theory. Most of these people would accept S2 and S3. Suppose that I know that it will be best for me if I make myself irrational. I shall soon describe a case in which this would almost certainly be true. If this is true, S2 implies that what I have most reason to do is to make myself irrational. S3 implies that it would be irrational for me not to do so. These claims do not give, as a substantive aim, being rational. Does this imply that, for S, being rational is a mere means? This depends on what is the best theory about self-interest. On the hedonistic theory, S gives to each person this substantive aim: the greatest possible happiness for himself. Being rational is not an essential part of this claim. It is a mere means. So is acting rationally and having rational desires or dispositions. Consider next the objective list theory. On some versions of this theory, being rational is one of the things that is good for each person, whatever its effects may be. If this is so, being rational is not a mere means, but part of the substantive aim that S gives to each person. The same would be true on the desire fulfillment theory in the case of those people who want to be rational, whatever the effects may be. It may be objected, suppose that we accept the hedonistic theory. S then tells us that being rational is a mere means. If this is so, why should we try to be rational? Why should we want to know what we have most reason to do? If we accept what S claims, and believe that being rational is a mere means, we shall cease to be interested in the questions that S claims to answer. This must be an objection to S. An acceptable theory about rationality cannot claim that being rational is a mere means. We could answer, a theory would be unacceptable if it claimed that being rational did not matter. But this is not what S claims. Suppose that I cling to some rock as a mere means of escaping death. Though my act is a mere means, it matters a great deal. The same can be true about being rational. This may not completely answer this objection. As we shall see, there is a similar objection to certain moral theories. To save words, I discuss these objections at the same time. This discussion is in section 19. I can now explain a remark that I made before. According to S, the disposition that is supremely rational is that of someone who is never self-denying. I wrote that, in making this claim, S does not tell us to have this disposition. S gives to each person one substantive aim, that his life go for him as well as possible. On some theories about self-interest, being rational would for some people be part of this aim. But this would only be because, like being happy, being rational is part of what makes our lives go better. Being rational is not, as such, a substantive aim, nor is having the supremely rational disposition. In the case of some people, according to S, being rational would not be part of what makes their lives go better. These are the people that I am discussing. It is true for these people that, if they were never self-denying, this would be worse for them than if they had some other disposition. Since this is true, being never self-denying would not be part of the aim that S gives to these people. S does not tell these people to have what S claims to be the supremely rational disposition, that of someone who is never self-denying. And, if they can change their disposition, S tells these people, if they can, not to be never self-denying. Since it would be better for these people if they had some other disposition, S tells them to cause themselves to have, or to keep, this other disposition. If they know that they could act in either of these ways, S claims that it would be irrational for them not to do so. It would be irrational for them to cause themselves to be, or to allow themselves to remain, never self-denying. Four, why S does not fail in its own terms. These claims answer the other question that I asked. When S is applied to these people, it is what I call indirectly self-defeating. Does this make S fail in its own terms? Does S condemn itself? The answer is no. S is indirectly self-defeating because it would be worse for these people if they were never self-denying. But S does not tell these people to be never self-denying, and it tells them, if they can, not to be. If these people are never self-denying, This is worse for them. This is a bad effect in S's terms. But this bad effect is not the result either of their doing what S tells them to do, or of having a disposition that S tells them to have. Since this is so, S is not failing in its own terms. It may be objected, this bad effect may be the result of these people's belief in S. If they believe S, they believe that it would be irrational for them to do what they believe will be worse for them. It may be true that if we believe that it is irrational to act in this way, they will never do so. If they never act in this way, they are never self-denying. Suppose that, in one of the ways that you described, having this disposition is worse for them. This is a bad effect in S's terms. If belief in S has this effect, S does fail in its own terms. In answering this objection, we need to know whether these people can change their disposition. Suppose first that they cannot. Why would this be true? If they cannot change their disposition, and they have this disposition because they believe S, the explanation must be that they cannot cause themselves to be disposed to do what they believe to be irrational. They could change their disposition only if they believed some other theory about rationality. S would then tell them, if they can, to make themselves believe this other theory. This possibility I discuss in sections 6 to 8. As I shall argue, even if this is true, S would not be failing in its own terms. Suppose next that these people can change their disposition without changing their beliefs about rationality. If these people are never self-denying, this will be worse for them than it would be if they had some other disposition. S tells these people to cause themselves to have this other disposition. The objection given above clearly fails. It may be true that these people are never self-denying because they believe S. But S claims that it is irrational for these people to allow themselves to remain never self-denying. If they do remain never self-denying, this cannot be claimed to be merely the result of their belief in S. It is the result of their failure to do what they could do and what S tells them to do. This result is worse for them, which is a bad effect in S's terms. But a bad effect which results from disobeying S cannot provide an objection to S. If my doctor tells me to move to a healthier climate, he would be open to no criticism if, because I refuse to move, I die. There is a third possibility. These people may be unable to change their dispositions or their beliefs about rationality. Their belief in S is bad for them, which is a bad effect in S's terms. Is this an objection to S? It will be easier to answer this question after I have discussed other theories. My answer is in section 18. Five. Could it be rational to cause oneself to act irrationally? I turn now to a new question. A theory may be unacceptable, even though it does not fail in its own terms. It is true of many people that it would be worse for them if they were never self-denying. Does this give us independent grounds to reject S? According to S, it would be rational for each of these people to cause himself to have, or to keep, one of the best possible sets of motives in self-interested terms. Which these sets are is in fact a factual question. and the details of the answer would be different for different people in different circumstances. But we know the following about each of these people. Since it would be worse for him if he was never self-denying, it would be better for him if he was sometimes self-denying. It would be better for him if he was sometimes disposed to do what he believes will be worse for him. S claims that acting in this way is irrational. If such a person believes S, it tells him to cause himself to be disposed in a way that S claims to be irrational. Is this a damaging implication? Does it give us any reason to reject S? Consider Schelling's answer to armed robbery. A man breaks into my house. He hears me calling the police. But since the nearest town is far away, the police cannot arrive in less than 15 minutes. The man orders me to open the safe in which I hoard my gold. He threatens that, unless he gets the gold in the next 5 minutes, he will start shooting my children one by one. What is it rational for me to do? I need the answer fast. I realize that it would not be rational to give this man the gold. The man knows that if he simply takes the gold, either I or my children could tell the police the make and number of the car in which he drives away. So there is a great risk that if he gets the gold, he will kill me and my children before he drives away. Since it would be irrational to give this man the gold, should I ignore his threat? This would also be irrational. There is a great risk that he will kill one of my children to make me believe his threat that unless he gets the gold, he will kill my other children. What should I do? It is very likely that, whether or not I give this man the gold, he will kill us all. I am in a desperate position. Fortunately, I remember reading Schelling's The Strategy of Conflict. I also have a special drug, conveniently at hand. This drug causes one to be, for a brief period, very irrational. Before the man can stop me, I reach for the bottle and drink. Within a few seconds, it becomes apparent that I am crazy. Reeling about the room, I say to the man, "Go ahead, I love my children, so please kill them." The man tries to get the gold by torturing me. I cry out, "This is agony, so please go on." Given the state that I am in, the man is now powerless. He can do nothing that will induce me to open the safe. Threats and torture cannot force concessions from someone who is so irrational. The man can only flee, hoping to escape the police. And since I am in this state, he is less likely to believe that I would record the number of his car. He therefore has less reason to kill me. While I am in this state, I shall act in irrational ways. There is a risk that, before the police arrive, I may harm myself or my children. But since I have no gun, this risk is small. And making myself irrational is the best way to reduce the great risk that this man will kill us all. On any plausible theory about rationality, it would be rational for me, in this case, to cause myself to become, for a period, irrational. This answers the question that I asked above. S might tell us to cause ourselves to be disposed to act in ways that S claims to be irrational. This is no objection to S. As the case just given shows, an acceptable theory about rationality can tell us to cause ourselves to do what, in its own terms, is irrational. Consider next a general claim that is sometimes made. G1. If there is some motive that it would be both A, rational for someone to cause himself to have, and B, irrational for him to cause himself to lose, then C, it cannot be irrational for this person to act upon this motive. In the case just described, while this man is still in my house, it would be irrational for me to cause myself to cease to be irrational. During this period, I have a set of motives of which both A and B are true. But C is false. During this period, my acts are irrational. We should therefore reject G1. We can claim instead, since it was rational for me to cause myself to be like this, this is a case of rational irrationality.